Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Go for Ball podcast. As you know, I'm Big Italy 42, and he is Scott Maywood at Sports 25 to Life. We're talking about some hitter trends, some guys who are hot, some guys who are cold, some guys who were one or the other and are starting to turn it around or regress a little bit. We're about a month into the season now, so get a pretty good idea of who's seeing the ball well, who's not. The guys that are being patient at the plate. Whole lot of things to talk about here. So without further ado, we're going to go opposite this time. Give you the big position first with outfield first. We're going to run down some guys from there. So you ready to get things going here, Scott?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. As you probably know, if you've watched baseball at all this season, Adam Jones, average-wise, is your top hitter so far, batting .400 on the season with a .307 ISO, .482 WOBA. He's only striking out at 11.9%, which is a really fine rate, especially for someone hitting for that type of power. 6% walk rate. I mean, the guy's just absolutely on fire right now. And what's really surprising to me is the guy who's batting second, because it's a guy who usually hits for some power but hasn't so far. Just hit his first home run of the season. But if you look at all the numbers, Matt Holliday, 19% walk rate so far this season tells you he's really getting on base a ton. .429 WOBA, just hit his first home run of the season. But he's a guy that not a lot of people are talking about right now outside of Cardinals stacks.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's been crushing it and hitting right with Matt Carpenter in that lineup. I mean, they've looked good overall as a hitting unit this early in this season. And like you said, it's kind of flown under the radar a little bit how well he's been doing. One home run is probably the reason for that.
Yeah.
But you got to figure the home runs will come around for him. He's a decent power guy. I mean, his WRC plus is 176 right now. His ISO is only 106, which is what's obviously the indicator of him lacking the home runs there. But I think it's going to come around, and it's really hard to complain about a guy hitting 379.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you could find your faults all you want, but you're hitting almost 400, you're obviously getting it done. And a guy that you and I always talk about, a lot of us here at the FC have been talking about on the podcast, it always goes underowned, but he's been mashing the ball. I think you know where I'm going with this one. Lorenzo Cain, still batting .329 on the season. He's got a 146 ISO, which is about what you expect out of him. But the guy's doing it all. 16 runs scored, 12 RBIs, 6 stolen bases, and 94 plate appearances. I mean, he's putting up a complete stat line. I mean, if you didn't play for the Royals, if this guy's name was Mike Trout, people would say, damn, Mike Trout is having a nice season.
Yeah, I mean, he's been fantastic. The 2 home runs is nice power from a guy that doesn't really hit a ton of home runs. His walk rate's low, but, I mean, it's really hard to complain about that when he's doing so much at the plate for you right now, hitting in the middle of a really potent Royals lineup so far. I think the power and the speed are both going to be pretty consistent like this throughout the season. I mean, his average is going to go up and down as he gets hot and cold. But, I mean, he's been crushing lefties, too, is the other thing. I think his WOBA against lefties is like 445 or 446. I mean, it's just really strong. You can pretty much lock him into your lineup at his price against a lefty almost every time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, he's been priced. He hasn't been priced like a guy that's crushing the ball too. So I mean, definitely a little bit of a salary exploitation that you can take advantage of there. A couple other guys up here. One guy that's really starting to get it going after a slow start of the season is Jacoby Ellsbury. He's got 8 steals now, 16 run scores, just 1 home run. I mean, he's got decent power, but not a guy that's going to hit a ton of home runs either. And I mean, you look at his walk to strikeout rate is pretty damn good. 10.4% walk rate, 14.6 strikeout. Really not hitting for any power, but I mean, batting .321. He's really being the spark plug in that offense right now.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been fantastic. Gardner's right up there with him, too. I mean, that Yankees offense in general, especially the left-handed hitting guys, have been really impressive. It's going to be interesting to see how they last throughout the season. I mean, the only guy in their lineup that's like really struggling right now, I believe, is a guy that's right at the bottom of this list, if I'm correct. Yep, Carlos Beltran and his 26 WRC plus.
He's also about 50 years old by now.
Yeah, right. I mean, he's been bad. 74 plate appearances, no home runs, only hitting 162 with a 229 batting average on balls in play. So, I mean, he's really struggling. 28% strikeout rate. That's the guy in the middle of that lineup. Well, I guess if you count 5-6 in the middle for the most part when he's sitting there. I mean, he's the guy struggling, kind of holding him back a little bit right now. The meat of their order has been fantastic, especially at the top, the first 4 or 5 guys.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And right around there as well is Nelson Cruz. We all know what he's been doing, but an interesting thing about him is he's hit 10 home runs this year, but only scored 14 runs. So that's telling you that the bottom of that Mariners lineup is really not getting it done for him. I mean, the guy's over here batting 322 with a 460 WOBA, 402 ISO, 10.4%, or I'm sorry, a 7.4% walk rate. But, I mean, for as much as this guy's getting on base, the fact that he's only been driven in 4 times, that's awful for that lineup behind him. And, I mean, he's been batting in the 4 hole, so that's telling you, you know, Seager, I mean, we know the bottom of that order is pretty bad. You've got sometimes Logan Morrison, Dustin Ackley, you got Brad Miller down there. I mean, that bottom of that lineup right there is just absolutely terrible.
Yeah, it's been really, really rough.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm sure that it can't be much worse. They'll start to get it going. And another Royals guy that's having a great season, Alex Gordon, really starting to heat it up over the last week or so, too. He's batting over 300, 407 WOBA. I mean, he's another guy to keep your eye on. That Royals stack, I mean, just because they're the Royals, just always under-owned no matter what. So that team putting up runs in a hurry right now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love the look of that offense right now. First 6 guys in there are all hitting about 300 with a 400 on base percentage and about 450 slugging percentage. So, I mean, they're going to cool off somewhat at some point. But, I mean, Gordon's slash right now is 303, 425, 500. And that's what everybody in their lineup looks like right now. I mean, even Salvador Perez, who's hitting like 7th most of the time and 6th, I mean, has been crushing it, especially against lefties for a catcher. I mean, their whole lineup looks great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just love that they are always so under-owned. You can always target these guys. I mean, Alex Gordon right now at his price tag, he and Lorenzo Cain both make for really good cash game plays. Cain more against lefties and Alex Gordon more against righties. But I had Alex Gordon in my cash game the other day, and I don't think I had a single person that head-to-head play him against me. And, I mean, he was great. So take advantage of some discounts with these hot hitters right now. But when we move over here to the bottom, I know a guy that you were frustrated, was getting unlucky, came close to a couple home runs the other day. He's not having a bad season when you look at his peripheral numbers, but, I mean, 194 average, a 211 batting average on balls in play tells you that he is getting pretty damn unlucky. Andrew McCutchen.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got 12 runs scored, 13 RBIs, a couple home runs. So, I mean, those numbers in themselves don't look bad, but it seems like he's just hitting the ball right where the defenders are this year.
Yeah, he'll get it going eventually. I mean, he's looked like he's hitting the ball well. The lineup around him's been pretty solid. I mean, Gregory Polanco's looked pretty good this year. Starling Marte's been pretty good. Josh Harrison's been pretty good in the leadoff spot. So I think he'll come around eventually. He's just, I mean, he hasn't even been bad. Like you said, his peripheral numbers are pretty solid, really. It's not, if he was hitting 273, you wouldn't even really be complaining at all. But when he's hitting 194, gives you some issues. A lot of 0 for 4 games in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Another big bat down here. Third to last in batting average among qualified outfielders. Jose Bautista, 164 average. He's got a 279 ISO, which is pretty damn good. An 18.2% walk rate. You like 5 homers, 13 RBIs, 15 runs scored. He's another guy where you look and you wonder how could he possibly be batting 164, and it's the batting average on balls in play. And let me tell you, his is just ridiculously low, 132.
Yeah.
I mean, you almost have to try to hit the ball at people to have that bad of a BABIP right now. I mean,
he's hitting a lot of fly balls right now, but still, I mean, 132 is crazy low. The fact that he's hitting 164 with that batting average on balls in play is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So he's definitely a guy I think is going to get it going. And he was banged up for a little bit. He's a little bit lower in plate appearances than some of these other guys. I think he was missing about 4 or 5 full games there at least. I think he's going to turn it around real quick here, starting with this weekend.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And we're going to go ahead and move on here to third base, where, once again, there's a Cardinals bat right near the top, and that's Matt Carpenter. I mean, this guy's been doing it all. 372 average, 3 homers, 21 runs scored, 14 RBIs. Hasn't stolen a base yet, but, I mean, we'll give him a pass considering he's hitting almost 400. He's walking almost as much as he's striking out, 10.4 to 11.5. I mean, we talk about him every single day that he's playing. He's a great cash game play every single night, and his price is starting to get up there, but, I mean, he's still paying it off more often than not.
Yeah, definitely. And he's just so consistent as a cash game play. He hasn't even stolen any bases yet, which I think he'll probably end up with around 10 of those on the season. So those will come a little bit. There's not really much you can complain about. He's got 3 home runs already, almost a 200 WRC plus. 279 ISO, which is a little surprising for him. He's usually more of a singles guy, and he's got a bunch of doubles on the year. Like you mentioned, 21 runs scored in that Cardinals offense with Holiday hitting there. He's just in a great spot right now.
Yeah, he's been tremendous. And another guy right behind him in wins above replacement as far as how good he's been. And third base hasn't been particularly great for most players this year, so you take that with a grain of salt. But Mike Moustakas,
yep,
3 homers, 19 runs scored. Once again, another Royals bat, batting .356. And, I mean, he's been batting second in lefty-lefty matchups, too. And he isn't particularly good against lefties. But, I mean, this guy's just getting it done once again. So this seems to be the theme. Cardinals and Royals bats, I mean, they're the top all across the – I mean, not across the board, but a lot of these guys up here in the top.
Moustakas, another guy with a triple slash in that lineup that looks ridiculous. 350, 420, 520.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not even really hitting for power yet either. 3 home runs is okay, but an ISO of 167 means he's hitting a ton of singles right now, and he's a guy that was touted for his power coming up. It looks like he's going to have a really nice season if he can stick in that 2-hole. And, I mean, his batting average might even remain higher if they start sitting him against lefties now and then to give him some rest. So he looks like he's in a great spot this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Another guy that we were talking about before, really was struggling the first week. Kind of got it going a little more the next week. Now really starting to get up there. 293 batting average now is Evan Longoria.
Yep.
Finally, his ISO is still a little bit lower than you'd like it to be, but I mean that comes with the first couple weeks being so bad. 133 ISO. Strikeout to walk ratio is great. I mean, he's walking almost as much as he's striking out, 13.5% there. Just 1 home run and 4 RBIs, but that speaks more to the fact that Rays offense has been bad. And my personal favorite, Kevin Kiermaier, seems to be stuck in the 7-hole or the 8-hole, even though he's the one guy in the lineup consistently hitting the ball hard.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as far as third basemen go, I mean, you're in a really good spot taking any of these guys at the top here. Pablo Sandoval is another guy who's looked great. 361 batting average on balls in play, 312 average. Been hitting right in the middle of that Red Sox order that's been better than expected.
Yeah, and he's the guy that, I mean, no one's really been talking about. Everybody's been talking about playing David Ortiz and Hanley Ramirez and everybody. And, you know, Pablo wasn't a guy that hit for a great average before. He was a guy that just had some pop in that middle infield, but, you know, or the corner infield, I should say. But, yeah, I mean, now he's hitting 312. I mean, that's a formidable lineup right now. I mean, it's terrifying. That's one of the lineups in the league I really don't like playing pitchers against ever.
Yeah, definitely. One guy at third base that's been really struggling is Adrian Beltre still for the Rangers. Finally got 2 home runs on the board now. His ISO's up a little bit to 133. He's a guy I'm not sure if he's going to turn it around. I don't know. He hasn't looked great at the plate. He's been striking out a decent amount, but he's actually pretty low compared to his career average there. I think he's below 10% right now, and his career average is around 12 or 13. So, I mean, he's been pretty solid in terms of that. He's making contact. It doesn't look like he has the power that he used to have right now.
Yeah, and it's not a contract year, so he doesn't seem to have much incentive to post some big numbers. But, yeah, I mean, he's dead last among qualified hitters at third base.
Yeah.
So, I mean, granted, there's only 23 of them, but there's also not that many more teams that have qualified third basemen. So,
right.
One guy near the bottom there who's been hitting for some power, Louis Valbuena, kind of did it all in about a week's span there and then kind of disappeared again. But, I mean, he's a guy who, for some reason, always seems to bat second, even against lefties. He's another one of those guys like Mike Moustakas. Valbuena doesn't hit lefties at all. I mean, he's mashes righties. He's got a ton of power, 244 ISO. But, I mean, he's like your ultimate GPP play. You're not expecting him to get 3 hits. But when he gets hits, I mean, he hits the ball a long way.
Yep, 5 bombs on the year already. 17% strikeout rate. So,
I think we would be remiss if we didn't mention Todd Frazier, who's leading all third basemen in home runs with 7. 16 RBIs, 17 runs scored, and crazy stat that I saw is the Reds are leading all infielders, or all teams among infielders in home runs, and that's mostly due to the fact that he and Joey Votto, I believe, have 14 combined on the season. But, I mean, he's a guy with a ton of power, 313 ISO right now, so you're looking for some upside in a tournament. I mean, he's only batting 238, but his slash line, 238, 340, 550, is pretty damn good, too.
Yeah, definitely. He's another guy that his batting average on balls in play is way below his average, too. 203 on balls in play, 238 on the season. So you got to think his batting average is going to come up a little bit as that gets back to the league average around 300.
Yeah, and the Reds have been shuffling their lineup around a lot here, too. So He's been batting as high as 2, as low as 5. So if he settles right in around that cleanup spot where I think he should be each night, then I think he's going to be in a perfectly fine spot with some on-base guys ahead of him.
Yep.
All right, moving on to shortstop, where top 2 guys are pretty surprising. One guy was up there for a while, still up there. Other guy, Freddie Galvis, second now. He's a guy that we've talked about a couple times as a value play. He's batted second quite a few times, but he's also been down in the 8-hole. I mean, when he bats second, he's one of the few bright spots for the Phillies this season. He's batting .355, and I don't think anyone's realizing that, but he's really putting the ball in play, too. 6.1% strikeout rate is really impressive, and you don't like the 4.9% walk rate, but that tells you right there. I mean, the guy's putting the ball in play, so he makes for a nice high floor play when he comes in at the batting in the 2-hole.
Yeah, definitely. Doesn't see a ton of pitches overall, which is what's kept him out of the second spot quite a bit.
Yeah.
So hopefully he can improve that a little bit as the season goes on. But like you said, for his price at a pretty weak shortstop position overall this year, I mean, he's not a big power guy. He's a pretty good cash game play, though, for a value. Shortstop, not very deep. The value plays tend to hit low in the lineup, so when he is hitting second, he really jumps out in front of most of the other shortstops at the position.
Yeah, absolutely. And the guy that everyone loves to pay up for over here, sitting 9th in home runs so far. Troy Tulowitzki just has 2. I mean, he's still hitting .308. He's got a .218 ISO, which is fine, but nowhere near the numbers that we're expecting out of this guy. He just really hasn't got it going yet this season. Had a nice first week. Had hit a homer. I think he had like 4 or 5 doubles that first week. Really hasn't done a whole lot since then. I mean, he's been getting on base a decent amount and scoring some runs, but just really not a guy that's been worth paying up for more often than not.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't really had a long homestand, though, either, which is, I assume, part of it. Most of their home games have been like 3 or 4 in a row, go back somewhere else. Like this weekend, they're in San Diego. So that's a tough hitter's park. I think at some point he's going to play 3 or 4 home series in a row and get really hot and be right back to that guy that we're used to seeing. I mean, it's really hard to complain about a guy hitting .308 at shortstop right now, though, too.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess I'm more complaining about his pricing, but it's fair pricing for his talent level. I mean, by far and above the best shortstop talent-wise at it, for any team, really. But, I mean, when you look down at the bottom, no one here really particularly surprising. You've got Jimmy Rollins, who it's kind of surprising he's down there, batting .185, but also, I mean, the guy's really getting up there in age, and he's getting on base a decent amount with his 11.8% walk rate, I guess. But, I mean, what do you really expect out of this guy? I think he's 36 years old now. He's there to be kind of a filler, a guy who's patient at the plate. You're not expecting big things from him behind the dish. All right. Ian Desmond is the other guy I wanted to mention. He's a guy that people were huge on before the season, and he's been really, really bad. I mean, 1 home run so far. He does have 12 runs scored, only 5 RBI. And I mean, he's been getting a good lineup spot more often than not. I mean, you've seen him right around the 5-hole a lot of times. I mean, you've seen him. I think he hit second a couple times as well. So, and this is a team that scored some runs too. So I don't know. I'm glad to not be in season-long league stuck with Ian Desmond right now because he has just been awful.
Yeah. That was the guy I was going to bring up, too. I mean, I really liked him coming into this season. I thought he was going to hit in a nice spot in the order.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a .279 batting average on balls in play and a .217 batting average right now.
Yep.
So, I mean, he looks not good.
It's concerning.
Yeah, right. I mean, even at a weak shortstop position, it's hard to justify taking him at this point. I mean, Jimmy Rollins is a guy that's kind of in that same boat, but at least he's stealing bases. I think he's got 2 home runs on the year. He's hitting in a much better lineup overall. So, I mean, if you're taking a guy that it hasn't been hitting so far, I'm going with Rollins. I just feel a little bit safer about it. I mean, Desmond he's got 0 steals. I think he's got 1 home run on the year. He just hasn't been hitting the ball well. Yeah. Another guy kind of similar to that is Alexi Ramirez, a guy that used to have a nice power-speed combo, was floating around 2020 for a couple of years, and now he's got 0 home runs and 0 stolen bases on the year, hitting .209 on a .250 batting average on balls in play. I'm hoping he gets it turned around, but I'm just as concerned about him as I am Desmond, if not more. I think Desmond's got a lot more talent at this point. Ramirez is starting to get up there in age.
Yeah, definitely. He seems like he's on the decline, and it may even be a steep decline right now the way he's going. So definitely pretty concerning there. And if you're looking for great cash game plays, look no further than the top of the second base charts. 2 guys I know that you and I both love playing in cash games. Jose Altuve love playing against the lefty, but I love playing him just in general. I mean, the guy is just unbelievable. You look at his numbers, 2 homers, 13 runs scored, 16 RBIs, 9 stolen bases, striking out just 7.5% of the time. Got a 133 ISO, which is not bad for a guy that's, I think, 5'8", batting at second base. I mean, he's got multi-hit games in, I think, 8 or 9 consecutive games. I mean, he's batting .367. It's going to be pretty hard for him to not win the batting title again the way he's going.
Yeah, I mean, second base has been one of the easier positions for me this year. Honestly, I rarely look past Altuve, Gordon, and Devin Travis at this point.
Yep. No reason to.
Right. I mean, with their prices, I mean, Gordon's been floating around like that 3,000 to 3,500 mark on FanDuel lately since they took the prices down. I mean, Travis has been right around there, and Altuve's up there, but he's been worth it for like the last week or so, basically every game. And so I'm just looking at those three, finding one that has a nice matchup and kind of playing that. I mean, you can mix in some of these other guys, but if you've been going like Jason Kipnis, he's been terrible so far, only hitting .218 on the year with 1 home run and 2 steals. I mean, that's not getting the job done. Robinson Cano is another guy that's been a popular play quite a few nights. He's been really sluggish to start the year, only 1 home run on the season. There's just not a lot at second base right now. Another guy we mentioned every time, Chase Utley's WRC plus is down to 1. I don't know if they can even keep playing him anymore at this point. He's just, especially hitting in the 3-hole quite a bit still. I mean, hitting 114 on a 102 batting average on balls in play. You got to think that it picks up a little bit, but I mean, he's up to a 14.8% strikeout rate. There's just not a lot of good there.
Yeah, and I think this is the 4th week that we've done this now, and each week it's Chase Utley going to get it turned around, right? Isn't Chase Utley going to stop sucking so bad? And I mean, it's just, rough. I'm with you there. It's just, I mean, you got no one else to play because the Phillies are just god-awful. They don't have anyone else, but, man, he's out there. He's probably a whole bunch of Chase Utley jerseys out there in those stands. I'm not real proud of that. Maybe they won't wear him to the next game because he's been absolutely terrible. But one other guy I want to mention who got bumped up into the 2-hole a couple days ago after he was been batting 9th most days is Johnny Giavotella. Yep. He's been batting .317 on the season. He's got a homer, 10 RBIs, 9 runs scored, which, you know, for a guy batting in the 9-hole up until a couple days ago is pretty impressive. And that's only in 73 plate appearances, too. So batting, it's got 365 BABIP, so that's, you know, not, it'll probably come down a little bit. But, I mean, batting over 300 in that lineup, and that lineup's actually been pretty bad. But, you know, people haven't realized how bad they've been. So if he can continue hitting the 2-hole, hitting right ahead of Mike Trout, he's going to have tons of really cheap value coming up.
Yeah, a guy we didn't mention in the outfield, I assume is the reason he's moved up that high, is Matt Joyce has been one of the worst qualified outfielders so far. Yeah. And he's the guy they brought in to hit high in that order quite a bit, and he just hasn't been able to get anything going. So, I mean, if he keeps out hitting him by that much, I can't see him moving out of the 2-hole very often.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And already mentioned some other guys. I mean, Ian Kinsler, he's been fine. He's not really hitting for any power. He's scoring a ton of runs, though. That's pretty much what you expect out of him. But still, just not even worth his price tag most days unless you're stacking the Tigers. All right, moving on to first base, where, of course, there's a lot of options. Adrian Gonzalez, once again, same old story until he cools off. He's cooled off a little bit. He's not batting, you know, the 500 he was earlier in the season, but still at 383. And, I mean, you look at just the top 10, nobody really is surprised here. I mean, Adam Lind, yes, is kind of a surprise there, but he's a guy, he faced a lot of right-handed pitchers, and he's always been really good against righties, so not a ton of surprise there. But, I mean, the other guys in the top 10, you know, Adrian Gonzalez, Miggy, Paul Goldschmidt, Joey Votto, Anthony Rizzo. I mean, all these guys are pretty much mainstays in the top 10 here at first base.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the only other guy that's really even a little bit of a surprise there is Duda is having a great year, but, I mean, the power hasn't really been there for him, which has been the struggle because, I mean, now that his price is caught up to what he's hitting, which is 325 on the year, I mean, it's tough to take him when he's only got 2 home runs on the season and it doesn't look like he's got a ton of power going on. Goldschmidt is another guy up there at the top, has 5 home runs on the year, 20 RBIs. Got to love him hitting in Arizona most of the time. Cabrera and Gonzalez right at the top. Anthony Rizzo is a guy that's looking really solid so far. I'd like to see some more power out of him. His ISO was around 200 last year. I think he's right around 150 right now.
Yeah.
And you got to think he gets that going at some point, especially in Wrigley. As it warms up, Wrigley becomes a much better hitter's park. And I think he's going to really get it going in the middle of the season here.
Yeah, I'm with you there, definitely. And once again, a Royals bat having a hell of a season. You mentioned how they all have great stat lines, and Eric Hosmer is a guy that just, I literally never see this guy on anyone's rosters. I mean, he's not a guy that I play very much. I probably should start playing him more. There's just so many options at first base. Usually it's tough to get a guy like him, but 3 homers, 12 runs, 15 RBIs. He's got 2 stolen bases too, 13% walk rate, slash line of 310, 404, 488. I mean, looking at these numbers right here, I feel like an idiot for not getting more Eric Hosmer in my lineups. I mean, he's a guy, he's almost always under 5% owned. You see him in a tournament, he has a big day, and one of those lineups up top, and I mean, his ownership percentage is always tiny.
Yeah, there's been a lot of those lineups at the top with random Royals guys in it this season.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, the tough part about Hosmer, especially with FanDuel's pricing being really soft right now, is just like everyone is cheap at first base, and there's so many good players. I mean, we've got Jose Abreu, who's only hitting 293 on the season with 5 home runs and 15 RBIs. And, I mean, he's going to get it going at some point. He's priced really cheap. Chris Davis just got it going recently. He's up to 5 home runs and 16 RBIs now. I mean, there's a lot of first basemen, and it's just tough because there's so many of them. It's hard to narrow it down to one every day, especially when you can just end up spending $400 more and get Adrian Gonzalez, who's just been raking all year.
Yeah, I mean, you got 16 guys, like you mentioned. Jose Abreu, the 16th best hitter average-wise at 293 at first base. I mean, that tells you just how deep it is. It's crazy. And, I mean, even Chris Davis finally starting to get it going here. 282 ISO now, 5 homers, 12 runs, 16 RBIs. I mean, he's striking out at a monstrous rate of 35.8%, but you don't care about that. I mean, you're not playing Chris Davis to see him, to care how he gets his outs. I mean, if he gets 3 outs in a game, doesn't matter if they're strikeouts or ground outs or flyouts, whatever. I mean, draft street is long gone, unfortunately. So you don't have to worry about that anymore. But, I mean, he's a big upside guy, and his price really hasn't caught up to his production, at least at FanDuel yet.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we got one more position for you here, just a couple more minutes. And obviously it's catcher. And, you know, the usual suspects, these guys that you expect at the top, this isn't one of those ones that's like first base. I mean, a lot of surprising guys up top, and Stephen Vogt, by far, average-wise, the best hitter so far. He's a guy that you and I tout all the time. It makes sense in cash games. He's got upside for tournaments, especially when he's against righty. Pretty much when he's against righties. He's not usually in the lineup against lefties, but, I mean, 4 homers, 15 RBIs, 11 runs scored, almost 12% walk rate. His slash line, 348, 429, 606. I mean, he's having a monster year, and people still are not playing this guy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's looked great. I mean, catcher's been really, really weak. We've only got, 3 guys here, it looks like, hitting over 300.
Yep.
And
3 guys
after
over 270 even.
Yeah, right after that, it drops off quite a bit. And there's just not a lot else there. And so I'm going back to the well with the same catchers every day. I think Buster Posey's going to get it turned around at some point, but only hitting 263 on the year so far. 3 home runs. The Giants' offense hasn't really gotten it going yet around him either. He hasn't had a lot of extra base hits. I think the 3 home runs are 3 of his 4 extra base hits on the season. His ISO is only 125 right now. He'll start seeing some lefties and getting it going, I think. He's going to be a guy that you can kind of ride through the middle of the summer, too. Hopefully he gets some more time at first base so that they can get him some rest from catching. Not a lot else at catcher. I mean, we only have 12 qualified guys, so it's mostly platoon stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, you got all the way at the bottom, no surprise, Mike Zunino. I mean, he's a guy who's power only before, but 113 ISO, 129 batting average, striking out 38.6% of the time. I mean, he's over there making Chris Davis look patient at the plate, swinging at everything. So, I mean, he's a guy who's like a punt. He's min salary at FanDuel most days now, but at this point, it's not even worth punting with him because I've seen him in some cash games, and I don't even know why, because the guys aren't even making contact.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so, I mean, he's a guy I will easily avoid. And one more guy, concerned a little bit. Seems like he only mashes the Reds. Maybe that's because I watch mostly Reds games. But Yadier Molina had a monster series against the Reds a week or so ago, and then hasn't really done much else at all. I mean, .062 ISO, 246 batting average. Hasn't hit a home run yet. I mean, he's the guy that, I mean, maybe he's kind of just the defensive catcher now. He's not much of a hitter right so far this year. Maybe he gets a turnaround, but I mean, I don't expect big things out of him at this point in his career.
Yeah, definitely. I feel the same way.
All right, that's going to wrap things up for us. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Tons of great content for every slate at dailyfantasycafe.com. We'll see you guys again on Monday.